I was on a yacht, 300-foot yacht, 30 girls, and I'm just like, I should be stoked. And I wasn't. And like my energy was being sucked in a bunch of different directions. I just remember just being way happier surfing with my buddies, doing a couple vacation, like all the stuff that I'd kind of done before Ignite. So I think 2012 till 2016 was probably the craziest. That was like the Motley Crue, rock star, like drug, sex, and rock and roll. Like that was it. I, became famous. It was like chicks were, fucking me in bathrooms. It was just like the crazy shit, and it was new and it was fun. And I did that. I did that for a long time. And then I got a girlfriend in like 16. And I was just, like I said, much happier doing the couple vacations, surfing. The guys who do the guy shit would work out during the day and then, play cards, whatever. I could f my girlfriend at night. There was no distractions, no stress, no headaches, no bullshit. And I was just like, fuck, this is much better. And then I decided to Ignite because I just kind of didn't want to be taking pictures in parking lots for the next 30 years with every asshole that came up to me and not have like something to show for it.
Not monetize the audience in some way.
I just felt like I should build a brand. I should just do something with it. And so it was, and also I don't know, I was watching TV, I think it was like 2017, and they said weed was becoming legal, or weed was legal. And I was like, this is perfect. I smoke a lot of weed. A lot of people wouldn't want to touch this space. Let me do this. And so I decided to launch Ignite. And when we did that, it was just everything I'd done before on steroids. Literally.
Because now you've got a capitalist justification. You've got a commercial reason to go and do this.
And, we'd raised $100 million. It was like, it was just
got to make it work.
Let's go do it. Let's just do it stronger than anybody's ever done it. Let's, kind of like do a modern version of Playboy. And it was just kind of, I don't know. It was just like all the stuff that I kind of wanted to do when I was younger. Like I wanted to fucking be like the new Hugh Hefner. I wanted to do all that stuff. And I did that, and it was fun, the $1 million parties, the traveling the world, all the stuff. But I was already kind of over it from the realization that I was happier having a girlfriend than doing the harem thing. And now I'm doing the harem thing on like a crazy scale with like 100 girlfriends and all this shit. And, yeah, but then I felt kind of trapped because now I had a brand and now I kind of had to do it. And it was almost like COVID saved me a little bit.
This is the difference between being homeless and going camping, right? That one is sort of mandated upon you, and the other one is a choice that you get to make.
Yeah. And it's a lot more fun when it's your choice. You're doing the same thing, but if you're choosing to do it, it's different.
How big of a difference was that sort of framing? The fact that previously this was adventurous, it was on your timeline, there was no degree of pressure for you to be able to do it. And then you come back and you go, this feels like a job, even though it's the least job-looking job that ever did job.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I think it was more because I was over it than because I had to do it.
Mm-hmm. So you're like a punch-drunk boxer getting back in the ring for one last go.
Kind of, and I also felt like an obligation to do it because, we had built the company and done all this stuff. So I don't know. I was kind of a slave to my own creation for a while. And then COVID almost saved me a little bit, I guess. Because then I took the 2 years and wrote the book and zoomed out and looked at my life and things that made me happy, things that didn't make me happy. And, that was pretty eye-opening.
Was there an overarching lesson from that? Obviously, you said, I preferred this thing, which was one girl and spending a bit of time with my friends. Was there a deeper insight than just admin to wrangle a squadron of chicks is kind of a bit of a hard day's work?
Well, it wasn't even so much that it was hard, but it was just spending time doing things that I didn't care about. That was a part of it. And then the big realization was the pleasure, and how it functions like a drug and how you need more of it to, get the same high. And then eventually you have to do it to not feel like shit, that whole thing. So, yeah, I just beat all my addictions when I was writing my book. I beat my sex addiction, my gambling addiction, my weed addiction, which was actually one of the harder ones to beat. And then I kind of went back into all that stuff, and then kind of beat it again. And I think when you beat it a second time, you're just like, okay, we got that, enough, And
where have you landed now? What's life like for you now?
Well, I spent the last 2 years working on this course, and I spent, a decent amount of time developing this new supplement product line and just hanging with my friends. Like I play paintball, I work out, I mountain bike, I do shit with my boys, and I don't hang out with a bunch of girls all the fucking time. And
what about that differential in the hedonic set point waterline between sort of where you were and where you are? We all know what it kind of feels like to maybe be in a place. Everyone's been on holiday and had peak experiences and then had to go back to their sort of normaler existence, and they go, oh my God, this sort of feels a bit gray and a bit dull. What was that deceleration like?
I would imagine it would be like quitting heroin, maybe. That was like the one drug I didn't do. But yeah, I think it's tough. You ever seen the gambling show Owning Mahoney, the movie?
No.
So it's a true story about this guy, and he's a huge gambling addict, and he makes about $20,000 a year. And at one point in the movie, he's embezzled so much money from his bank that he's betting $70,000 a hand on baccarat, and he's like $5 million in debt, driving like a $3,000 car, and he's married, and like his wife has no idea. And then he ends up winning like $10 million. So he could pay off like the $4 or $5 million and like literally be set for life. And this is in the 80s when like $1 million was like enough. And he ends up losing it all back, like every dollar, and goes to jail. And it's funny because they had an interview afterwards and they asked him, they said, on a scale of 1 to 100, what would you rate, your highest thrill in life? And he's like, gambling. And he goes, 100. And they said, outside of gambling, what's the greatest thrill you've ever had in your entire life? And he's like, I think about a 20. And the guy's like, how do you feel about living at a 20 for the rest of your life? And I think when you do like max pleasure seeking, it's tough because you kind of like numb yourself even in that moment. Like I remember having breakfast with my buddy and he's like, oh, what'd you do yesterday? And, it's like, oh, fuck 4 chicks or fuck 5 chicks or, whatever it was. And it was just like, it wasn't even like, it's kind of like telling me he ate Cheerios. It was just like zero emotion, none of it. Like it didn't, it was just kind of the course of the day. And I think that kind of goes back to the whole, you just get used to whatever your baseline is. And I just set like such a crazy baseline of what normal was that I don't know, anything other than that, like absolute overstimulation is going to feel like a little bit of a void. But I think at the end of the day, I got to the end of the earth with it. And if you go to the end of the earth with something and it's not enough, then it's never going to be enough.